Are you confident? Do you have consistency? How much conviction do you have? I'm Daniel Gomez, the Confidence Architect, a business strategist, keynote speaker, executive coach, and best-selling author. On the Daniel Gomez Inspire Show, we will help you unlock confidence to create consistency and develop conviction. Together, we will discover the key that unlocks your confidence. Welcome back to another episode of the Daniel Gomez Inspire Show, where we motivate you, we inspire you, and boy, are we going to educate you today. Today, we have a gem of an episode for you. I'm excited. We got a special guest, fellow JMTer, but not only that, this gentleman is amazing. He's actually living the entrepreneur life. So many of us, we have a dream and we never take action. But what I love about Erik Allen is that he's living the dream and he's doing it. He's moving forward. And the truth is this, is that anything is possible if you believe it. So welcome to the Daniel Gomez Inspire Show, Mr. Erik Allen. How you doing, my brother?
I'm doing amazing, man. Thank you so much for having me here, dude. Truly an honor to be on your podcast, man.
Hey, brother, I know the amazing individual, human being you are. Do me a favor. Introduce yourself to the Daniel Gomez Inspire Show.
Yeah, my name is Erik Allen. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a podcaster, husband, father, Jesus believer, man, and just out here to just try to impact as many lives as I can. And didn't share my story till I was 39, which was just about 4 years ago. And so I think God just put on my heart to start changing lives through my story, man. So that's the goal.
Well, we've had some great conversations, me and you, and I definitely know you're going to add some value here. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is a part of the show where I tell you, get out your pen, get out your paper, because Erik's going to add some massive value to your life right now. And what you write down, what you retain, over 50% of it. Remember that. What you write down, you retain over 50% more of it. So I want you to take notes and take notes and take notes, because he's going to drop some wisdom. Erik, let me ask you this, Erik. You do amazing things, right? What I loved about our conversation was that you work full time, but you didn't stop that from keeping you from, right? You didn't stop your entrepreneur journey. You didn't say I can't do it because I'm no. You went out there. You went and got certified, John Maxwell certified. You went and you started your journey, and then you started a podcast and you blew that up. And what I love about it is you took what you had and you started. Why do so many people not even take that one step, do you think?
Man, I think it's fear. I think it's fear of judgment. I think it's fear of failing. I think it's not having good time management. For me, I'm an early riser, man. I get up at 4 a.m. 6 days a week and put in time into my podcast and self-development and, listening to podcasts and spending time in the word and worshiping and praising God in the morning. And that helps get my day right. And I do that early morning stuff because then it doesn't eat into my family time. Because at 5 o'clock at the end of the day, I really try to put the phone away and just focus on my family. And people are like, well, why do you wake up at 4 a.m.? Oh, well, my answer to that is my desire to be successful is bigger than my desire to sleep, period.
Say that again. I love that. That's a boom, baby, right there.
So, my desire to be successful is bigger than my desire to sleep. So I do get to bed by about 9:30, but I'm up 4 a.m. 6 days a week to work on this stuff, my personal development, my relationship with Christ, my podcast editing, reaching out to clients, things like that.
So listen to what Erik's saying there, ladies and gentlemen. Are you committed, or are you just interested to your success? Are you committed to doing the hard things? Are you committed to waking up at 4:30 if that's what it takes? Listen to what I said earlier. I admire what Erik's doing because he has a full-time job right now. But one thing that he told me in our first conversation that we had was this, is that I'm not going to be here long. I want to be a full-time entrepreneur. And so many of us right now, we're listening to this episode. You're putting so much pressure on yourself because you're looking to the person to the left, you're looking to the person on the right, and you want to mimic and duplicate what they're doing. That's not your life. If it means that you have to have a part-time gig, full-time job, whatever it is to get your business off the ground, then do it. And if it means you have to wake your tail up at 4 o'clock in the morning, like Erik's saying, well, then that's what you have to do. But don't allow the excuses, the alibis, and the reasoning that you put in your own mind to keep you from giving that God-given destiny that you have. Erik, let me ask you this, because I want to be totally transparent in this conversation, and because I want you to, I know your heart, man. What's one of the alibis, what's one of the excuses you should tell yourself prior to really taking that big leap for yourself?
Oh, one, it was, I don't have time, for sure. Time was always a factor. Well, I don't have time to work out. I don't have time to, get up early, things like that type of stuff. So for me, that was always the excuse. The other one was, well, I don't feel like it. I need my sleep. I'm going to stay up super late. I'll tell you, there's a lot of days where I wake up at 4 a.m. where I don't really feel like waking up at 4 a.m. But I know that if I don't get up at 4 a.m. when I told myself I was gonna, I'm letting myself down. And so if I can stick to my commitments and I can stack those wins early, that's what motivates me to get out of bed. It's those high standards and discipline that I've put on myself for the last 10 years.
I love what you're saying, right? Because when you're committed, your willpower will show up in a different way.
Yeah.
Most people, we don't have the will because we never commit to that first step. And what did you find out about yourself as you're waking up at 4 o'clock now and you're doing this? Does it get easier? Does it get harder? What's been the transformation since you committed to doing this process of waking up at 4 o'clock? Because people say, I get up at 4 o'clock myself. People say, well, why do you do it? But I want to hear your story, because I think the way people relate to different people in a certain way, I want to hear your perspective on that.
Yeah. I mean, for me, waking up at 4 a.m. is the thing that I've learned is I can do it, right? Like I'm stronger than I think, and I can live off of a little bit less sleep, right? I don't need to get 8, 9 hours of sleep. I usually get between 6 and 6.5 hours of sleep, and I'm good with that. My body's good with that. I can last through the day. I didn't go from waking up at 8 to 4 though. So if you want to wake up earlier, don't go 4 hours or 2 hours, go 15-minute increments and work your way down to whatever time that you want to wake up. But I realized that I'm stronger than I thought. I can do this and I can push myself, and I don't get up and I'm groggy and I'm like, oh man. I get up and I'm like, it's action time. For me, I have to stack those wins. So it's a goal of mine to wake up each day. So if I open my eyes, I'm like, man, immediately, thank you, Jesus, for another day. And I get to see and hug and hold my family, right? That's win number one. Jump out of bed, make my bed. There's 2 wins in 15 seconds. My brain's already going, man, we're already getting wins. We're already getting wins. And then for me, immediately upstairs, man, it's time for worship. It's time for praise. It's time for drawing close to God. That's what helps get my day going. And just the dedication that I've been put into that for the last 10 years, I just know that I learned through all of that I'm stronger. My body now pretty much wakes up without an alarm. I usually wake up between 3:45 and 3:50 every morning.
So those moments of worship, like you say, you come upstairs. I love the way you said that, man. Thank you for opening your heart. I think men need to hear that nowadays. What has spending that time in prayer first thing in the morning as you go upstairs and spend time with God, what has that done for your life and for your business?
Massive difference. I used to not spend as much time in prayer. I would just get up and say, man, thank you, Lord, or whatever. And I just go downstairs, and I didn't really acknowledge or be intentional about that time that I was spending with God. And now it's a non-negotiable. No matter if I'm traveling or if I'm home, whatever, I'm getting up, and that's the first thing that I'm going to do. And I started writing in this little black book right here. And I start with affirmations, and then I go my goals, and I do my to-do list, and I review that throughout the day. Now, some people talk about like doing the to-do list the night before you go to bed. You can definitely do that. That's awesome. Craig Ballantyne is the master at that stuff. But for me, this is what works for me. I get up and I spend time, and I'm more dedicated to writing down, acknowledging, and being intentional about my goals, about my priorities. It was about 6 months ago where I really had this moment of, man, what am I doing? If I look at my kids' age, they're 13 and 10. I've roughly got 5 to 8 years left with them in my house. So I said, you know what? I'm tired of putting my time in things that are not going to add value to my family in the long run. And so I shifted those priorities, and I spent that a longer time in prayer, deeper time in prayer. And man, it's just opened up the doors of opportunities, a massive, deeper relationship with the Lord. And this year I'm reading the New Testament again, and just really feeling like I'm drawing close to a man.
I can relate with that because I think for me, even though I was winning in business for many years, I was losing in my relationship with my son. And that was a huge just relationship that I was blind to, that I was losing at.
Sure.
And when my wife was diagnosed with breast cancer in 2017, I didn't realize all the BS that was going wrong in my relationships.
Yeah.
And I can tell you that when I got intentional about my relationships and really making God the CEO of my business, and then putting family and then business, to your point exactly, your kids are young enough to still do that. My son was 17 years old when all this kind of transpired with my wife. And not that I lost him right to a signature disease, but I almost lost him because he didn't even want to hang out with his own man, because to him, right, my dad's a prick or something. He didn't tell me that, but you can tell that, like, they don't want to be around you. And now it's like he calls me, he FaceTime. He doesn't even call me, he FaceTimes me, and he looks for me, and we hang out, and it's just a turnaround that has happened.
I love
And
that.
I truly believe, because that's the alignment that I put myself in, putting God first, then
Mhm.
family, then business. That's why I truly believe. I mean, not that I believe, but I know that that's the reason that in 2021 we grew tremendously. In 2022 we had a record-breaking year, and it's because of those things that Eric's saying. So, ladies and gentlemen, listen to what Eric's heart's saying. He was intentional on going upstairs and getting a deeper connection with God. Where right now are you? Are you putting work before your kids? Are you
Mhm.
putting what are you putting before your family? What are you putting? I mean, what do you have that's out of order? Because if it's out of order, it's never going to work. You might get that $1,000 check or that $10,000 check, but at the end of the day, if your kids don't respect you, if your kids don't love you, and your marriage is falling apart, what good does it do you? Or
Yep.
if you're looking for that temporary fix, it's not going to work. You have to think long term, long game. And I can tell you, like what Eric said, he's going to win. One day we're going to wake up and we're going to hear the name Eric Allen, and we're going to be like, wow, I remember that guy. He was on the Daniel Gomez Inspire show. Now he's traveling the world, speaking and touring the country. Like, I remember that dude, because his life is in the right order. And when you put God first, I promise you, you're not going to lose. So look at yourself. Is my life in disarray because I'm chasing the wrong things right now? And maybe you are no Daniel Gomez. Hey, I'm not judging you. I'm just telling you the shit that I went through that was wrong. And
Sure.
I was 44 years old when I had my come to Jesus uh, for the second time. And once should have been enough, but sometimes you're just hard headed like me. You're Mexican and you don't learn the first time around, and it's life. So let me ask you this, man. How has you as a human being, right? Because we're talking about this, but what's the difference in you now that you really put God first, and now you're going out there, you're doing your podcast, you're meeting new people, you're really doing just life in a different manner. What's the big difference that you've seen in yourself just as a human being, not so much in business, but just what do you like? Let me put it this way. What do you like about yourself that maybe you didn't like about yourself before? Like, man, I see a difference in myself.
You know, you touched on this is I started changing the priorities. So where I had God and then I was like business and family, because in my mind, being the man of the house, I'm like, I have to provide for my family. And I was saying that I was putting that on my own plate instead of saying, I know that God's going to provide. And so through this journey, man, of drawing close to God and me just growing in my relationship with him, it's helped me to be a better husband. It's helped me to be a better dad and be intentional about spending time with them and being present, man. Like go downstairs, try to turn off the phone. I try to be present with them and put the phone away. You know, a lot of times as dads, we get busy and we just want to provide and we want to work. That's great. We're providing. But then we get around our family and our head is in our phone, right? We're checking Facebook, we're checking Instagram, we're checking other things, we're doing business. For me, man, what has helped me over the last year and drawing close to God is it has helped me become a better dad and a better father or a better husband.
I love it, brother. Now that you are an amazing podcaster and you're doing entrepreneurship, what's the best business advice that you received, Eric?
Mm. You know, for me, I was I was lucky enough to have Ed Milet on my podcast. I won the Max Out Community Challenge in 2019 or 2018, sorry. And it landed me a phone call with him. And it was supposed to be 20 minutes. Him and I had chatted for 30 minutes on Zoom. I was able to record that and release it as an episode. It was literally episode 12 of my podcast. I had just started. And, you know, one of the things he said to me that I hadn't heard of before, but he's like, look, Eric, I want you to remember this acronym, CANI, CANI, constant and never ending improvement. He goes, never settle for your improvement, for your learning. Always be figuring out how you can learn and improve and get better. And so here I am, you know, 5.5 years into this podcast thing, 6 years into this podcast thing, and I'm still learning. I'm still trying to get better. I'm still trying to figure out how I can make a bigger impact. And so that one thing that he said, man, that acronym, you know, and another quote that him and Tony say a lot, and, you know, life happens for us, not to us, man. And once I realized that, man, it was like, oh, my past and other people's opinions don't define my future. And then when I realized that, I was like, boom, the doors of opportunity began to open up.
I love what you're saying, because what came to mind is that people say that saying a lot, but that
Yeah.
includes the bad too, right? When life's
Yes.
happening to us, not life happening through us, not to us. Recently, I had something that wasn't too good, right? Somebody broke into my truck, they broke my window, had to get the window retinted. But I never really, the old Daniel would have played the victim mentality. 10 years ago, I would have been like, man, how can this happen to me? This restaurant stinks and blah, blah, blah. I would have talked about it throughout the day.
Yeah.
So as this happened, Me and my son look at each other like, well, did they take anything? I go, no, they got my sunglasses right here. Everything's here. I go, I guess they were just looking for something in particular. Well, I got home and I had an option, right? They go, well, how was lunch? Well, it was great. Remember, I got my truck broken into.
Yeah.
I could have talked about it and just really, but I said, well, this is happening to me. No, it's happening through me. So am I going to choose to really not that I'm not going to be aware because it happened to me, right? They broke into my truck,
Yeah.
but it's like I'm going to be mature enough not to let it control my conversations throughout the day. Because I think so many people, something hits them in the face, and then that's all they talk about. But the thing is this, it's negative shit. It's negative. It's not good.
Yeah.
And then next thing you know, they wonder why their day's not going right. They wonder why their week's not going right because I believe me, I could have come. It took me about a week to get everything squared away. I had to fix the window, then I had to come back and get the windows tinted, then my horn, they disconnected my horn. So it took about a week and a half. So I could have spoken about it for a week and a half. Tell me what's your perception on that? When life is happening to you, that's one thing. But when it's happening through you, what's the difference in how a person responds to that? Because I think we hear that saying all the time, but no
Yeah.
one ever really gives us an explanation of what does that truly mean?
I think we have to take a step back and go, yeah, this is happening to me, or this is happening for me, or through me. But like, are we having a bad 15 minutes, or are we having a bad day? There's a big difference. And I think a lot of people will tend to drag that 15 minutes into 2 weeks and 3 weeks and 4 weeks out, right? Like if we stub our toe on the couch, it hurts for about 5 minutes. It's over with. Like, don't go through the rest of the day going, man, my damn toe hurts, right? Like, get over it and move on. Like, don't let little tiny things hold you back. Someone breaks into your truck. If no one was hurt in your family, maybe that person just desperately needed something. Like, yeah, you're going to get pissed for 10, 15 minutes and go, oh man, that sucks, right? But in the end of the day, no one got hurt. Maybe that person really needed something that helped them. And we don't know. Like, God's got different plans, right? Like, who knows what's going on in their life, right? And so I just think it's funny, like, people, we just tend to drag these little tiny things out and play that victim mentality. But if we thought about it for a second, are we having a bad 15 minutes or are we having a bad day, right? Have the bad 15 minutes, cry about it, write it down, yell, scream, punch a wall, no, don't punch a wall, don't hurt yourself, but like punch a punching bag, right? Like, but get over it and then move on and start impacting the world with that, right?
Yeah, and honestly, at that moment, I found something to be grateful for. There was some glass there. I looked up, I saw my garage door opener. I was really grateful
Yeah.
that my garage door opener wasn't taken because I don't know, that would have definitely probably taken some peace out of me because then I would have been like, man, your thoughts go wild. They got the garage door opener. I got to reprogram the garage opener, do all this.
Totally.
I said, God, thank you, God, the garage opener still there. And I was grateful for that. And it taught me not to leave it up there anymore because I used to be just, oh, right, you take things for granted.
Yes.
But
Totally.
ladies and gentlemen, I want you to hear what me and Eric are talking about. There's always something to be grateful for, even in times of challenges, in times of adversity, in times when circumstances seem to be coming against you.
Mm-hmm.
What do you have to be grateful for? What is it that's happening for you and not to you in that moment? Because we hear this saying all the time, but I wanted to go deeper, and thank you, Eric, for giving me that explanation. Because when you talk about the problems over and over and over, and you talk about the situations over and over and over, and you talk about the circumstances over and over and over, you're really allowing them to control your life. You're allowing them. So write this question down right now as you're listening to this episode. What am I allowing to overtake me right now that I don't even realize it? What circumstance in my life am I allowing to dominate my thoughts to the negative?
Mm.
What business problem is consuming me because I'm playing the victim and I don't even realize I'm playing the victim?
Yeah.
People don't take time to ask themselves those questions, Eric.
Mm. Yeah, man, I could sit there and go, well, I grew up in a broken home and I was in jail and I battled addictions and I was bankrupt and all that. And I could let that all hold me back from making an impact, play that victim mentality. Or I could say that was in the past, it's over. And now I've learned my lesson, because I think that when we fail or we go through those trials, it's what catapults us to success, right? We can look at that and we can learn what we did, what we didn't do wrong, what we did wrong, whatever, how we grow through those failures. That's all learning lesson, man. And I think through those trials, those tribulations that we go through in life, that helps us be better. And hopefully we can share our story and help somebody else on the back end that we may not even know. Like, someone might listen to this podcast that you and I may not even know, and they might go out and get their life changed because of this podcast, right? We don't know, but if we can share our story and we can be positive and just love people where they're at, man, the world would be a better place.
Yes, and I love what you said, because the thing is this, is that when you realize that where you're at right now, with that constant improvement every single day, this isn't our final destination. This is just one of the bus stops along the bus route. That's
Yeah,
it.
love it. Love it. Yeah.
This is just one of the bus stops on the bus route.
Yep.
And the beautiful thing is, I used to think like, man, it's gonna take forever. No, it doesn't. When ladies and gentlemen, trust me, when you put God first and you start doing the things right and you start living by the right principles, your business just flourishes overnight. It seems that way. I literally, Eric, was the other day, I went walking towards the living room and I just looked up and I just started breaking down in tears, right?
Mm.
I'm like, God, like, forgive me for not really appreciating the house you've given me.
Yeah.
Like I fell on my knees and I just said, thank you. Because it's like 5 years ago, I would have never believed that I'd be where I'm at.
Right. Yeah.
I really, it's like a dream come true.
Mm.
But sometimes we need to be more appreciative of the things we have. Many times we need to open our heart to realize that, man, I'm worthy and deserving of this, and that it's just the beginning. It's just my bus stop right now. Maybe I don't like my bus stop, but
Yeah.
the beautiful thing about it is the bus keeps moving.
Come on.
So in life, Eric, let me ask you this, because we asked you what's the best business advice that you got. What's the best life or business advice that you give out to other people?
Mm. For me, I think there's two things that can really help people and just in life in general. One, turn off the news. They have their own agenda. It doesn't matter what they say. They're getting paid to do whatever and to promote the doom and gloom. If we all turned off our news, man, we would just be a happier society, period. And the other thing is, I would say just stop judging people. Not my job to judge anyone. My job is just to love people where they're at. It doesn't matter to me if you're vaccinated or not, wear a mask or not, or if you identify as a toaster. That doesn't matter to me. My job is just to love you where you're at, man. And I think if we turn off the news and stop judging people, those two things could change the world.
That's huge.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, I agree with you on the news, right? Like, either the news or even trash TV. You got so much trash TV out there that doesn't add value to you. But I like the second one you said, judgment.
Yeah.
Let's go deeper on that one. That one's out. I've never really had a podcast conversation about that, because without even realizing it, I went to a corporate training that we got certified in, and this is what really opened my eyes to it. It was called unconscious bias. Have you heard that term before?
Gosh, I
So,
think I have, but I don't know much about it.
so unconscious bias is pretty much the same thing as judgment.
Okay.
So, and one of the examples, one of the tests they gave us, they gave us a sheet of paper like this, and they said, okay, I want you to write down what's your unconscious bias when it comes to a police officer. And it was amazing, right? So there was 30 people in the room. We're there. So we pick it up. Pretty much everybody had the same answer, right? At the donut shop, getting a donut, drinking coffee.
Yeah.
True story.
Wow.
But that was the unconscious bias that we had towards police officers.
Yeah.
The second one was abuse their power. So right off the bat, this unconscious bias that we have towards police officers is, you can't find them when you need them. They're at a donut shop eating donuts and drinking coffee, and they abuse their power. Those were the top three.
Wow.
But that's a way, what you're really doing is it's really judging people, right? It's judgment.
Totally.
And when I heard it that way, I was like, okay, I want to learn more about this unconscious bias. So as the day went on to get our certification and our training, I was like, I never realized how much unconscious bias I had on me.
Sure.
And when I really opened up my heart to realizing my lens to see, like, man, that's like, I'm pretty judgmental. I didn't see that. But we see it. The reason we don't see it is because sometimes it's through the demographics that we grew up in, or you're looking at other demographics and you're like, well, why are they that way? And a good example, something else that they had us do in another example they gave us of this was, like, I'll ask you a question, right? It's like, well, what do you think when you think of people that go to Walmart? Right? And everybody had a certain perception.
Sure.
And then then the facilitator said, well, don't you go to Walmart sometimes? And you're like, well, yeah.
Yeah.
But think about it, right? But
Yeah.
unaware, unconscious bias, we're judging people. And how would you say you've gotten better at that? Or how would you say that you've improved in that unconscious bias judgment area yourself?
I had to put myself in environments where I felt kind of uncomfortable, you know. Well, you know, I've done a couple work trips out to New York and Chicago, and being around different environments in the big city for me is a big like sticker shock, you know. It is for me because I'm in Idaho, and I get that the unconscious bias for Idaho is probably like, oh, they're a bunch of white supremacists out there, right? Like that's not how we are. But that's what people probably judge. And I hear that a lot, man. Like, there's only white people out there. There's not really, but like, I get it. But like, for me to just get out of my environment and go test the waters, I had to go to these big cities. I had to surround myself with diverse culture, like other people that aren't like me. Like, and I had to put myself in those situations. Was it scary at first? Yeah, like getting in it. But then it was like, man, these are all normal people living their life trying to be better for them and themselves and their families. Like, I love this. People are doing their thing on a daily basis. And so to put myself in the middle of that, man, it was like, whew, okay, I'm strong. I can do this. Right. Like, but I had this kind of unconscious bias, like, man, people in the city, they're kind of like, they're going to be snotty and they're going to not like me because I'm just this redneck guy from Idaho. Right. Like, you know, but it was fun to get in there. It's scary at first, but man, I grew so much putting myself in situations where I knew that I'd be uncomfortable.
Yeah, I like the way you said it, right? So listen to the statement, gentlemen. Where are you passing judgment on somebody, or maybe it's not even a person, maybe it's a community, maybe it's a group of people that you're putting judgment on them, but you don't really understand in depth who they are or what they do.
Right.
And it goes back to that old saying, you don't understand someone until you walk a day in their shoes or until you walk a mile in their shoes.
Hmm.
And I'm speaking to myself as I'm saying this to the audience because I had to really open my heart because one thing that I'll tell you that transformed my life is kind of the same experience that you had when I went to go speak on leadership in Asia. Never did I expect to get impacted the way I did. We ended up going to we were in Qatar, the richest city in the world. From that extreme to Pakistan, next thing you know, we're just some of the poverty that we saw there, that I saw there, that I experienced firsthand. I didn't complain. I mean, I just like wow. I got back on the plane 4 days later after we're coming back to the States. I literally just cried, Eric,
Mm.
because I said, God, what do you want me to learn from this? Like, what's
Yeah.
the reason? Like, obviously, there's a reason you brought me here.
Hmm.
And I think so many times as Americans, we don't realize how blessed we are. And I
Man.
just cried. I just really, really cried because at that moment back here at home,
Yeah.
what I thought I had big issues going on with our house and just 10 things that seemed to be going at us, it's like it's really irrelevant when you put the size of your problems to what's going on in other nations or countries.
Totally.
I realized I'm more blessed than I can possibly imagine.
Mm.
And it
Yeah.
really helped me to become a more compassionate human being. And I think that when you operate from a place of compassion, you're less likely to judge people and see them from that negative standpoint. And you see, okay, help me to understand them. How can I help them? Maybe they're that way for a reason. And I think that it's true in business. So many times we misinterpret people because maybe they do business a certain way. Well, we don't know why they do that. I mean, yeah,
Sure.
maybe they come across as harsh or direct, but do you know the person? Do you really understand where they're coming from? Let me ask you this: what's one of the biggest surprises that maybe in business that you can share with us that when you met someone, maybe it wasn't like, wow, I don't know if it's the right fit, but then next thing you're like, man, this is the best person in the world. I love him.
You know, it's funny. So I had Dr. Greg Reed on my show. He wrote the book Three Feet from Gold, which is the follow up to Think and Grow Rich. And it's such an amazing man. And he had invited me to go down to an event at his house called Prosperity Camp. And there was 50 people. That was it. They got to go to this event. And I got invited to go to this thing. And it was all because I invited him on my podcast and he invited me on there. And got down there. There's 50 people there. 49 are millionaires. I'm the one, right? I'm the one that wasn't. And I was kind of intimidated to go in this place, right? And I'll tell you, I got in there. There's people that were like amazing business people. All of them had just such amazing hearts. But there was one gentleman there that had these dreadlocks and, he just looked like this surfer dude. And, I was like, not judging him at all. I was like, man, that dude, he's got these dreadlocks and like, is he really a millionaire? Like, what's he doing? Like, what's his heart really like? And I'll tell you, that guy's name is Kelly Cardenas, and he's become one of my best friends since that event. As soon as he saw me, we just connected, man. He's got a faith in Jesus. I have a faith in Jesus. And it was just like this, Lord was bringing us together. I did another trip down there the following year, and he invited me to go watch the sunrise from his house out on the beach, man. And I'll tell you, man, that moment between him and I, and just sitting on the beach and just like writing and journaling and just going, man, God, this is awesome, right? God brought him into my life. And I walked into that going, man, I'm not going to meet anybody or connect with anybody because I'm not the millionaire, right? Walking into that party. But he just like opened armed and just loved on me, man, and has become one of my best friends the last 3 years.
Wow. So listen to what he said, ladies and gentlemen. Look at that. First of all, there's two huge stories in what you just said, Erik. First of all, even though you didn't seem that you were there at that level financially, you put yourself in a room and you allowed yourself to experience that. Mm-hmm. And I guarantee that just because you gave yourself that mental preparation to walk in there and then you were amongst them, your capacity expanded so much you don't even realize it.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Man, absolutely. I'll tell you, I did everything I could to get to that trip. I used air miles to pay for my flight. I paid like, $30 in taxes. I stayed at the cheapest Motel 6 I was warned literally the day before I was checking in, like, oh, by the way, that's where they have a lot of hookers and drug dealers and people get beat up all the time there. I'm like, oh, that's awesome. Like, thanks for that. Right. But I knew I had to get to this event and I did whatever it took. I paid for the cheapest. I walked everywhere. I walked miles just so I could get to this house. They picked me up because they knew that I was going there on a cheap budget. Like, I knew what I needed to do to get into that environment. And like you said, I had to prepare mentally, walking in going, man, they're going to look at me like I'm this dude who's not like business or professional because I'm not the millionaire. But man, it was like this door just opened up and God said, boom, these are some of your people, not all of them, but man, this is where I connected with a lot of people from that event.
I love that. So write this down as you're listening to this episode. Where am I not giving myself the opportunity? So many times we have an opportunity like Erik did to go to this prosperity camp and to be among some people that are smarter, more educated, that have better wisdom, or maybe further along in life and in business, but you don't feel you measure up. So you don't even take advantage of the opportunity. Erik could have done that. Why are you doing that to yourself? Part of growth, part of maturing is taking a risk, taking a chance. And if you don't take a risk, if you don't take a chance in 2023, you're going to be at the same place you were at the end of 2022. Let me say that again. If you don't take a chance, if you don't take a risk, if you don't walk, like Erik said, if you don't walk and put everything you got just to get to this event, one event can change your life. One person can change your life. But if you don't even show up, half of success is showing up.
Yep. Yeah.
I'm passionate about this because it breaks my heart when people, entrepreneurs, businessmen and women make excuses day in, day out, and they don't realize that the only excuse that's stopping them is the excuse to believe in themselves. If they could just have a little bit more faith and stop being double-minded and really commit to what God gave them to do, man, you were committed, you were walking.
Come on, man. I think I walked like 20 miles over the 30 days that I was there. One of the things that I talk about in my affirmations every single day, I say I am available and I am open to every opportunity that God has for me. I say that and I write that down every day, man. I am available and open for any opportunity that God's going to present. So I take opportunities very seriously, man. If people say, hey, you should go to this meeting, I'm going to sit there and pray on it and go, okay, God, is this from you? Like, do I feel like this is something that you're leading me to? And I'm going to just go. I'm going to make it happen. Whatever it takes. I might not eat all day because I can't afford the food, but if I can get in that room, then I can grow mentally and I can grow in my knowledge, right? And then it can open up other doors, right? I'm willing to starve myself throughout the day, right? If I have to cut out food so I can get to an event where I can learn some stuff, man.
I love it, brother. So what's your big audacious goal for this year?
I want to help 100 people launch a podcast this year. And so I started podcasting in 2017, didn't know what I was doing. I was in a walk-in closet for almost my first 100 episodes, and then somebody said, well, how do I listen on Apple? And I said, what the hell's that? I didn't even know what Apple Podcast was when I started this thing. And once I started deep diving in, like, how do I set up an RSS feed? What is an RSS feed? Like, how do I get on Apple and Spotify and all this stuff? God just opened up so many doors. I've been blessed to speak with guys like Ed Milet and Brad Lee, and Bedges Koulian, Jim the Rookie Morris, like, Tim Story, and the list goes on and on. It's just been blessed to speak with these guys. And so I help people launch a podcast and show them exactly what I did to get those big names and how to get your name out there. In 2021, I set a goal to be a guest on 100 podcasts on top of releasing 100 of my own. And I was a guest on 117 other podcasts on top of releasing 100 of my own that year. And so I teach people how to get in front of people, how to promote your show. And I've been blessed to, I was ranked 133 on the Apple Entrepreneur podcast in the US, 202 in the UK, and we're continuing to grow this thing, man.
I love it, brother. What's the name of your podcast?
The Erik Allen Show, man.
I love it.
It used to be called The Bearded Biz. I used to have a big beard. I had it was called The Bearded Biz for probably about 50 or 60 episodes. And then I had Brad Lee on my show and he goes, what's it called? The Bearded Biz? Are you sure about that? And my wife's like, hey, you should probably change the name. And so we just changed it to the Erik Allen Show. And, I ended up going down to Vegas to be on Brad Lee's podcast in 2021, man. And the doors have just opened up, man. It's been fun.
Well, I'll tell you what, brother, I'm so proud of you, man. How can we get in contact with you if somebody wants to get a hold of you, brother?
ErikAllenMedia.com. It's ErikAllen media.com is my website. I have a ton of free resources on there, tools that I use, equipment that I use. There's books that I recommend. All that's on there. I have my courses and stuff like that, of course, as well. But ErikAllenMedia.com is the website. And then I am probably most active on Instagram. So Erik G. Allen is that on Instagram. It's ERIKG and then Allen. And I respond to every comment, every DM. So if anyone has questions, they can reach out. I'm happy to help them out or point them in the right direction.
Brother, last time, you're not off that easy. What's a quote or a scripture that you rely on in times of adversity to keep you going? Man, what's a quote or a scripture that you rely on in times of adversity that keep you going?
It's my verse that I write down every single day. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me, Philippians 4:13. Like that quote to me, that verse to me, anytime that I'm like, man, how am I going to do this? Or what am I going to do? I don't know if I can make this payment this month or whatnot, right? Like I can do all things, not some things, all things through Christ who strengthens me. That verse is what keeps me going every day, man.
Amen. Love it, brother. Ladies and gentlemen, Erik G. Allen, look him up on IG, reach out to him. We'll have your information on the show notes. That's the episode here this week. Thank you so much for tuning in today. And if you're stuck in life, if you're stuck in business, reach out to me at danielgomezglobal.com. That's danielgomezglobal.com. Fill out our entrepreneur's assessment. It's a free assessment that we give to entrepreneurs and businesses, and set up your 45-minute complimentary discovery session. And if you have a book that you want to write, reach out to us, our division, DG Enterprises. We've talked to hundreds of authors, get their stories going in book form. We want to publish your book this year. And last but not least, we want to see you here March 17th and 18th in San Antonio, our Sticker Shock Speaking Academy, where our speakers are literally changing lives, helping businesses, and not only that, growing their brand and their business to speak in. We want to do that for you. Give us a call at 210-663-5954. Until next week with another amazing guest, thank you once again, Mr. Erik G. Allen, for being on the Daniel Gomez Inspire Show.
Man, thank you. Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
This is Daniel Gomez, and thank you so much for tuning into our show today. We'd love your feedback. Please drop us a comment, and thank you for leaving us a review. Don't forget to subscribe to our show and share this episode with a friend. And my free gift for listening to our show today is a copy of my best-selling book, You Were Born to Fly. To get your free copy, go to danielgomezinspires.com and get your copy today. That's danielgomezinspires.com. And to elevate your life and business even more, follow me on social media at Daniel Gomez Inspires on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Together, we will discover the key that unlocks your confidence.